Good afternoon, Maurits.
Hello, Francesca.
Very pleased to welcome you to our micro interview series around sustainability. And for our listeners today, I'm very pleased to introduce you to Maurits van Tol, Chief Technology Officer of Johnson Matthey, a constituent of the FTSE 100 Index, a leader, a £14.6 billion leader in specialty chemicals and sustainable technologies. And today we're here to talk about renewable energy, sustainability, and the evolving hot topic on the agenda of business, community, and the world. So Maurits, given the priority on mobility and on sustainable technologies that Johnson Matthey has, what, in your view, are the game-changing shifts and opportunities arising across renewable energy and sustainable technologies at the moment?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because it's quite transformational what's going on. I mean, when you look at Johnson Matthey, we are indeed a clean tech company. We've been around for 200 years, but the transformations that we see happening right now are unprecedented, I think. When you look at the global mobility trend away from fossil fuels more and more towards hybrid, then battery electric and fuel cell powered cars, for example, and transportation in general. The energy shift from oil and gas more and more to renewable electricity, for example, and then also green and blue hydrogen as another major trend. And of course, when you look at society, we all want to have a current comfortable living standard. And for those who don't have that yet, they want to grow to the middle classes, rise to the middle classes, and they need their chemical building blocks to do so. And more, the third transformation we see is companies try to produce, our customers try to produce based on our technologies, those building blocks with a much lower carbon intensity. So these are three transformations that we observe that play at the heart of our technology portfolio, but are unprecedented in speed and size, I think.
And do you see this as a regional focus? Are there differences across the world?
Well, what you have observed, of course, is over the last 18 months or so, this drive towards net zero. I think many countries, go into that direction. But the interpretation, the local interpretation of where they will put their focal areas is different. So, for example, when you look at Japan and South Korea, these are typically countries that bet very big on the hydrogen economies and fuel cells for automotive, for example. When you have a country like Chile, where we work with Siemens and Porsche together, you see this, a lot of availability of renewable electricity. And they really concentrate on the production of low carbon chemicals and e-fuels, for example. So you see that the regional interpretation of how we will, how countries fill in these transformations is different.
Interesting. And in the current environment, therefore, what have you observed across the world to be the critical pivots for and against renewable energy, sort of in its wide scale usage and development?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. I think in general, people really are concerned about the planet. So climate change is a big topic in the people's minds. So the drive towards renewable energy, for example, is supported by many, but it doesn't mean, of course, that there are no issues. For example, windmills is associated with killing quite a high number of birds, for example, or the NIMBY, not in my backyard. These are elements we wanted as society, but rather not have a windmill next door. And of course, I think even stronger is the concern about biodiversity. When you think about bio-based chemicals, biofuels, those kind of things, people see this as a solution, but want to make sure that we don't, ruin our biodiversity on the planet. So these are elements that you need to address. And I think when you look at these three transformations, they are so sizable that it's also not about companies or governments or NGOs. It's about all of us together that shape the society of the future, so to speak.
And in terms of the response, therefore, to the shaping of the future, the evolving ESG, regulatory, consumer values and priorities on CSR and sustainability, how is Johnson Matthey responding to that?
Yeah, that's of course very, very important. You feel that drive in society, the need to also be very transparent as a company. So we also publish, I think, very transparent annual reports. But what we have done in June of this year is also published, the goals that we have as a company. We want to be net zero by 2040. We want to look at our own assets and water and waste management, those kind of elements. But of course, at the end of the day, the biggest impact that our clean tech portfolio has is with our customers. When they deploy those clean technologies, that is where we have the biggest impact as a company. It's about millions of tons of noxious gases that our catalytic converters take out of the environment. We have technologies for the production of low carbon hydrogen, et cetera. So in that sense, the effects are biggest on our customers in that sense. But of course, it's great to have those goals. Also, we have published that towards 2030, we want to move 95% of our R&D budget towards clean tech, and in areas that are linked to primarily four UN Sustainable Development Goals. And I'm very proud for a company that does that. We are now at 83 to 85%. We want to bring it all the way to 95% minimum by 2030. So there you see already the drive of this clean tech company to also listen to society and see how we can enable those transformations with our clean tech portfolio.
And given COVID and the crisis, has there been a change and shift and focus for you?
I think not so much of the company, but the drive and the support for our sustainability drive as a company has been strengthened. We feel supported in that more. Why? Because I think when you look around us during the COVID period, people wanted to go outside more, and they appreciated gardens more, came a little bit closer to nature, also understanding how valuable the protection of Mother Nature is, so to speak. And I think that has made these transformations that I described at the onset, they are irreversible. They won't go away, is my very strong opinion, because it is really what the consumers also want and support. So I think what COVID has done is accelerated all those transformations and the awareness of many that this is really important and the planet is something precious and we need to take care of her.
And I suppose those behaviors that you're talking about have come to the fore. And in your mind, what are the most important behavioral changes that the organization, whether it's Johnson Matthey, whether it's the clients that you work with and organizations that you observe, what are the most important behavioral changes we need to adopt to truly have an impact?
I think this again relates to the sheer magnitude of these transformations, that no one can do it on his or her own. So I think one of the key skills to developing companies, and actually also at NGOs and at government, is about alliance management. Consortia is a key word for me, because no one can do it alone. And I think that is a very important element to stress, that we need to work together to shape the society of the future, as I said before. And I think also there, we have some fantastic examples. For example, in the UK, that we are with Acorn and HyNet, two very big programs in the north, where we see experimentation with a hydrogen-based society. If and when that is successful, that's really going to be an export product. And we are very proud that also some of our technologies are associated with those experimental cities and transport and chemical hubs based around renewable electricity and hydrogen. And I think in that sense, it's again showing, working together is going to be key. And I think when you look at the consumer side, also the consumer plays a role, because we were just discussing the increased awareness of the consumer about the planet is precious, we need to protect this, and we're concerned about climate change. I think it would be great if that's translated also into requesting products with low embedded carbon, for example, transportation, some more working from home, another COVID effect, of course, public transportation, which powertrain do you use for your car? Do you choose for your car, etc., etc.? Because if consumers start to make the choice, the low carbon choice, the net zero favorable choice, that means demand for those products goes up. And that means that we bring these industries for cleaner products and cleaner technologies to scale faster. And that's only beneficial to all of us. So also the consumer has a very big impact, because at the end of the day, they choose which products they're going to use.
And also that will sort of drive the changes in companies and the pressure on companies to change as well.
Of course, it will in that hand force that you pay attention to it. For Johnson Matthey, I'm proud to say it's not necessary. We really have been very transparent throughout, and we're really trying to do our best. But it's of course great if that's also supported by consumers who help us and our partners bring new technologies to scale very, very quickly. Yeah. So it's very symbiotic in that sense.
Excellent. And any advice as a Chief Technology Officer and to organizations as they think about how they can make their activities and their products more sustainable? What would be the key fundamentals you might recommend?
Start the journey, start the dialogue, and make sure you all realize it's not simple, because sometimes it feels like one product that must be a lot cleaner, better for the planet than another one. It's not so obvious. You really need to do life cycle assessments in a very careful way, making sure you hire in sufficient expertise to make sure that the final choices you make are really beneficial for the planet in that sense. So it's not easy, it's complex, it's quite a daunting task, so to speak, but just start the journey. We're very early still on this journey in these three transformations that I described. And that means for me that start the journey and learn together. And that's again also there, team up with others in the value chain that you're active in is very, very important. Try to learn together. Do not only look at your own role, this part of the value chain, but look at the decisions that you make. What impact do they have to your suppliers and your customers and the entire value chain? So team up with others. Again, consortia, educate yourself, look at other value chains where you are not competing with, so you can be more open in the discussions and trying to learn from how they tackle some of those complex issues. But start the journey now, because these transformations go very, very fast, and the consumers demand of us that we bring in the best available technologies to scale as soon as possible.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Maurits. I'm sure that all our listeners will be taking that advice and may have lots more questions, which we might come back to you on. Thank you very much for being with us today.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.